Da-da-da-da. Oh,
Record.
hello, we're recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Movie Cast. Movie Cast. I am your host, Dana Abercrombie. I forgot my last name for a second. So sorry about that. My name is Dana Abercrombie, and I am here by the wonderful, the always stupendous Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you, Mr. Bailey of the Juniors?
Doing good, Dana. What's up, ladies and gentlemen?
Hello, everyone, ladies, gentlemen, everyone else. How you doing? We're here to talk about the greatest movie that has ever existed on the face of the earth, and that is obviously Morbius, the Academy Award winning Morbius. So this is a spoiler review, so we will get down into the nitties and the gritties, and I almost said the titties. Sorry. So anyway, so sorry. Let's start off. Basically, this was a movie that was supposed to come out 2 years ago, and we say that for an actual reason because it's clear to see they removed a lot of scenes that were supposed to be in the movie, and they butchered the after credit and maybe even the mid credit too, because this movie was supposed to come out before Spider-Man: No Way Home.
hmm
And because of the whole switcheroo, they had to change everything, and it makes no sense. But before we get into that, let's just talk about what were your opinions? Did you like this movie, Mr. Bailey?
Well, I just want to start by saying, if you we know that today is April Fool's Day.
Ha.
So if you are looking for a very fun, entertaining thing to laugh at, go see this movie. And then you will have the opportunity to laugh at how bad it actually is. Um, I saw the movie last night. The only good thing about when I saw it is that I saw it at the Dolby Cinema, so I got a chance to see. You have the sound, the picture quality is a lot bit better. But even still, it was watching it that way. Um, it still was just a very bad movie to watch. Now we'll get into some of the things, some of the specific issues I had with the movie. But I will say this right now is that you know, I know that Sony has this whole plan that they are trying to build for the future of these movies. They have a plan in place for the Sinister Six, and that was why it was very confusing to see those two mid credit scenes, which we will get into a little bit later. But I just want to say, after watching this movie and watching the mid credit scenes, I now don't give a damn about the Sinister Six. I feel if they want to have the Sinister Six, that needs to be the very last Spider-Man movie they have for this new movie deal of the three movies that Tom Holland signed up to do. Because I think once you have the Sinister Six, there is no way that you can have another adversary or adversaries to match up with Spider-Man. So if they want to do this right, these next three movies, they should take their time to build and establish that team. And then in the last movie, then you have Spider-Man go up against the Sinister Six. That's just my opinion. But I don't have faith they're going to do that because of how they handled this movie. And if they handle this movie the same way they intend to handle Sinister Six, then it's going to be a complete mess. So we'll see. That's my brief thoughts. But yes, we're going to dive into a couple of these issues that I had.
So for me, I saw this almost, oh God, almost the beginning of March,
Hmm.
because I had to do the press junket,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed the press junket more than I did the movie. Jared, so here's the thing for me though. I know we all know it was delayed, and then because COVID happened, it was delayed even more. I was looking forward to this because for me, if you tell me Jared Leto and Matt Smith, I'm going to go see something right away. I'm going to go see it
Mhm.
because despite the poor writing of the movies that Jared Leto has been in, I feel he's a very strong, talented, and dedicated actor. It's just not his fault that the movies he's been in were horrible. He was completely decimated his character in Suicide Squad.
Mhm.
Then you had that whole thing with House of Gucci and him being completely over the top. Oh my God, the whole thing. But he's dedicated. He tries, and I always did like that about him. But he hasn't had a good movie since 2013, and that was Dallas Buyers Club. And
Mhm.
so I felt like, you know what? He attached himself to a franchise. This has to be good. Forget the Suicide Squad, he gets a redo because we've seen so many times where actors were placed in not good movies and then they can blow you away later. Look at Barry, don't know how to pronounce his name, but Barry, the dude who was in Eternals, who
Yeah.
later ended up becoming Joker in Matt Reeves' Batman. Superb. We really didn't get much of that character in Eternals, but as we saw him as Joker, for me, it was like, oh my God. So I was excited for this. Here's the interesting thing I saw it in a private press screening with people from Sony.
Uh-oh.
The room was dead. It was silent. You know, when they're trying to do their little jokes and get some humor in? Nothing. The after credits, people were leaving before and during the after credit. Like they were, I have to go. Like I can't stay in this room. I gotta go. And it was just so sad because I've never been in a screening for anything. Even when you just see the movie itself, I've never been in there where it's completely silent. So like imagine something like Endgame and no one says anything, or Infinity War and no one says anything, but they still leave like that deflated feeling. Because remember, at the end of Infinity War, like everyone's snapped away. We're kind of sad. And for this one, it was just like, it was just sad. So when I saw it, I again had the expectation it was going to be good. And I have to say, it was good in the first half. For me, I thought it was like, okay, we're doing something. And then it felt like it was two different movies. And we didn't get even a middle. We got the beginning and the end, and there was no middle. And even the end credit scenes felt like it was just a whole different movie. That I'm like, did I miss three movies or something behind this? Because nothing really gelled, nothing made any sense for me.
Hmm.
So, overall, the story itself, because I felt like the story wasn't something that was so overly complicated. It was a guy who suffered from a blood disease and he wanted to find a cure, and not just a cure for himself but for other people with the disease. And he became a dedicated doctor, and he's Hippocratic oath, and he's like straight good guy with morals and everything else. And his best friend is by his side, Matt Smith, who played Milo. And he's also morally good, but he just wants to go out and live and be normal. That's pretty simple. And then you're like, oh, I found the cure, but the cure is also the curse. See how simple that can be? And then like you're fighting with you and your best friend during the whole rest of the movie on what we should do. That seemed like it was simple enough for you to take a creative interpretation and make it something great. Or you could just give us, yeah, a movie. And I felt somehow they didn't even do that. Like they started off good, and then it felt like an entirely different team came in and the tone just changed. So how
Yeah.
was that for you?
Well, I would say I did not like how they started the movie.
Really?
You immediately jump to, you show him basically getting himself, coming into contact with these bats, and instantly the first thing you see is this is how he basically got access to what he needed to eventually become Morbius. Then you to go back to the childhood. I would have started with the childhood right from the beginning of the movie. I would not have
Mhm.
had this scene where you flash forward to the future and then all this jumping around with the story. I think that was a little ridiculous. I also think the storyline with the kids, that was more entertaining to me than most of the stuff that happened when they were adults. And I think that, as you said, the whole concept of, the jealousy between the friends, that isn't really an original idea because we've seen it in Spider-Man. You've seen it in a lot of other movies before. But what made it interesting is that, yes, they both had the same disease. So obviously, I think that they didn't do a good enough job to really emphasize the jealousy in which Milo had for his friend. And again, I did see the video that you did before when you talked about some of the scenes that they cut of his as well, Matt Smith. And I think personally they shouldn't have cut the scene, but I also think even if they did cut the scene, or they had it in there, I think you still needed more context to understand why he was jealous. Because to me, I still did not get the feeling as to why he was jealous. Yes, you see that your friend He's a scientist. He's getting accolades, and you're here waiting, hoping that he, develops a cure, which is fine. But I still did not really get the sense that why he was so jealous of his friend, and they could have done a better job with that. So that to me is something that really destroyed the story. Also, the whole thing about when Milo eventually gets access to the serum, and he also becomes pretty much the same type of creature that Morbius is. We didn't really see anything pertaining to that. You saw a scene where he found Morbius at his weakest, gave him access to blood, and then that was it. He helped him out, and then he left. You didn't see him go back in there. And again, when they revealed that he was the one that killed that nurse, they could have easily cut a scene together to show you, oh yeah, this character, this is what happened. He went back into the lab, he got the serum, and then he took it, and that's it. We didn't see any of that. So that to me tells me that there's an issue with the editing as well, because there's important things that needed to be in there for context reasons that's not in the movie. So yeah, this is why I say they had a simple enough story to actually talk about, and they still found a way to mess it up because of what they decided to take out of it in the actual editing process.
But even that, like when he went to kill the nurse, I'm just sitting there like, but why?
Yeah,
Like it didn't even make any sense. There were elements like that didn't make any sense. You talked about the whole part with I'm now a killer. Just in
yeah.
general, I'm gonna start killing. That doesn't make any sense. Um, the whole thing with Tyrese really didn't make. There was no chemistry at all with what he. It was no chemistry. But it just felt like he was randomly thrown in there because people are being murdered. So here comes the two cops, and they're gonna banter with each other, and none of the jokes are landing, and the chemistry is really bad. Um, yeah.
To add on to that, since you brought up the cops, the chemistry is bad, but then you also have a scene where they see footage of this killer and they say, well, that's not Morbius. That clearly is someone else. It could be a copycat, whatever. And yet they still decide, okay, so let's now continue looking for Morbius. When it's very clear that this is not Morbius that's doing this, it's someone else. Uh that is I just think, and then by the end of the movie, there's so many questions about. Obviously, they were unable to find Morbius. Morbius escapes. Well, I mean, we'll get into the ending later because there's a lot of things I got to say about the
But
ending that
well,
I think.
Vulture has him on speed dial. You know that.
Yes, yes, he does. Yes, yes, he does. But I just think that it's just a long list of issues with the movie itself.
Hmm.
I'm not taking anything away from Jared Leto Jared Leto. As you said, he is very committed to these roles. I will say you can tell he got into shape for this role, and I think that must be a requirement of every person that's in a Marvel movie, with the exception of Paperboy's character in Eternals.
He was just happy with food.
Yeah. Brian Tyree Henry, I believe his
Hmm.
name is. Yeah, that's the exception. But it feels as though anytime somebody's in a Marvel movie, Marvel says, "Okay, you need to get on the diet regimen. You need to get in shape for this movie." And you could tell he is committed to the role because he looked fantastic in excellent shape. But it's unfortunate that he keeps getting put into these movies, and there's a lot of issues with the movie. Whether it's he's not getting enough screen time, his character in a lot of stuff is cut out completely, or he just gets a bad script and he's the one that's left to try and sell this movie in interviews, talking about, oh yeah, it's a great movie and you should check it out. So it's not good. So I am hopeful that he gets a great opportunity in the future. I'm not convinced that this is it. Now, if they make a Morbius 2, which I'm sure they will,
Well, you, yeah. uh,
maybe he has an opportunity to turn that around. But I'm very curious to see what if this movie actually makes the 30 to 40 million that they projected is supposed to make this weekend, which I'm pretty sure it will, since there is no other movie in the theater. And what else are people going to watch until Sonic comes out next week? So
Well, so far it's made it's paid made 5.7 million in
Uh-oh.
Thursday. So I'm like, here's the thing. I don't want this movie to be like a failure. I genuinely hope people like the movie. I just don't want to watch it again. I didn't like it, but I genuinely hope, like, hey, be a success. Jared Leto needs this.
Yeah.
Please help him. Um, but yeah, no, it's something. We'll have to wait and see on Monday what the full tally is.
Hmm.
But I think for me, like you said, a lot of things just didn't make any sense, and then we started to notice that things wasn't right with the movie. Like a week before it was supposed to come out, when you're doing like regular press tours, when the director starts tweeting the whole movie and then explaining the after credits. And this
Hmm.
is before anyone even sees the movie. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, wait, what is going on? And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you for that because I didn't understand. But why overall are you spoiling it for people who haven't seen it? And then you had Matt Smith. He's running around and he's explaining scenes he wished that they included. Like he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, they cut that out. They cut that out. But see, my character, and I'm like, what is going on? And he's basically explained that his journey from we see Matt Smith with who was handicapped to him running around being a vampire, like screw people. They had a whole arc of that. They had an explanation as to why it is that way, and it was basically, we've seen him be disabled for all of his life by that point, and he finally has these newfound powers. And a girl, what's that word? When you don't want to be with the person, I forgot the name, but turns him down. And he comes back and he's like, "Well, screw it. I'm looking like this now, and you've seen me before, but I'm still getting the same results." It hurts. It hurt him at that moment. She used him for the whole thing where she uses him, and he's really heartbroken about it. And there's a whole emotional arc he goes through, and it explains that because when we meet him, we don't even see him take the cure. We just know that he does when he does the Sizer Kose walk out of the
Yeah.
jail cell, which I like the Kaiser Sose. And then I was like, okay, so you're gonna like go back and explain how that happened? And
No.
they didn't do that.
They said no. We're not going to do that. We're going to leave it to interpretation. You saw it when you saw when he started turning into the vampire and killing people. So that was the sign. And then of course he left the blood for Morbius so that Morbius could escape and be ready to come after him and fight.
I just
Um, I just want to make this quick comment.
mhm,
I understand what they were doing with the story.
mhm.
There definitely are ways that could have been improved upon. And the whole thing about him being jealous, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. This is just an idea. If it was a situation where he also was a scientist, but he did not get the opportunities that his friend got, or something to that extent, that would have been a better explanation as to why he got jealous. In the fact that I kind of felt they were playing around with some stuff in the beginning of the movie, because the whole thing that Michael was isolated from him because he got a chance to go to this school for the gifted people, and yet we saw there was a scene as a kid where Milo got beat up by those kids. By the way, kids are horrible. The way that they bully each other like that, that's absolutely horrible. So but the way that whole scene went down, I kind of felt like they could have built upon that and basically was saying, yeah, because Michael wasn't there or he didn't have his back, he wasn't around, that also could have led to his resentment and being jealous about what Michael was accomplishing and what he wasn't. But again, they did not do a good job of playing up the whole jealousy thing. And that's an issue that I have because it doesn't make any kind of sense. But continue. Oh, you're muted.
I am muted.
You're good now.
That was Sony sabotaging me. It was, but there were also elements that was really good when it came to the girl, the female who was basically Morbius' assistant, and then they made love interest. They made love. Her. She was actually really good. The thing is, everyone was really good. The script and the execution was just bad.
Yeah.
Um, what I liked about her is she was like, I'm gonna help you and hold on to that humanity side, and I understand what's going on. I thought it for a moment she was dead, but she wasn't. Um, and I really like that.
I do think that the love interest was great. The only issue I have, and this is something that I people were hitting me up about this afterward. They thought it was a little messed up that it didn't look as though she was too interested in him when he was sick and he had this condition. Then
Mm.
all of a sudden, now he has this amazing physique and can walk. Now she's interested. So I think they should have showed more that she was more interested in him, and maybe they tried a little bit, but I think they could have added a little bit more to that to show she was interested in him even before all of this happened with the transformation. Because yeah, I thought she did a great job, great actress. Um, but yeah, I just think that was a little weak as well, and it could have been a little bit better. But I
But
agree. I see where they were going with that.
I see. Here's the thing with Martine that I kind of maybe was like, it's kind of okay if they didn't stretch and show that whole love interest thing. It was always the thing where it felt like Morbius was going to die
Hmm.
because of his condition. So I was wondering if she put that thought in the back burner because she didn't want to get attached emotionally like that to him. Because I'm going to get really attached. I really love him. And now he's dead. And then so by him getting the cure was like, well, hey, I can say what I want to.
Now it sounds to me like they should have been talking to you about this. Like you basically are explaining possibly what they should have done. I don't know, and I don't even know if a Sony exec was thinking the same idea, but that's exactly that makes perfect sense. From that explanation makes perfect sense. I mean, they could have showed that I think a little bit more, but I think you what you said that's exactly what something is that should have been better emphasized.
Hmm.
Because I feel like anyone that watched this movie, they're going to be a little confused because there's already a lot of other things happening that they are confused about. So that's I agree 100% on that.
Maybe they did that and then cut it out because
That's possible. Hmm.
that maybe that because then that was weird. And then remember at the end when what was it? He needed blood because his supply was running out. The blue blood, the fake blood was running low, and then he bit her, or no, she bit herself, and then kissed him,
Hmm.
and then I guess died, but then came back as a vampire lady girl.
Yeah, after he sucked her blood, some of her blood.
They
So
tried.
so so I don't know if you're already venturing towards the end, but
You
I
can,
there's okay.
no, go go.
So there's a lot of things to say about that I was think very confusing. Go to what you said before about the fact that so prior now keep in mind again,
Mhm.
ladies and gentlemen, if you're paying attention to the movie, you know this. Before the final battle takes place between Milo and Morbius, I recall him basically he has this whole plan where he wants to inject Milo with this shot that's supposed to kill him. But he has two of those shots. And I recall him saying perhaps it was to her. Yeah, it was to her. Saying, "Yes, this is the only way I need to kill him and I need to kill myself so I can stop what I created." Okay, that's great. So I'm expecting that to happen now in the movie. So what happens is, of course, things go awry. She gets killed for a period of time. He bites her, whatever, sucks the blood, whatever, and then he has his final showdown with his very good friend Milo. A nice little battle, I guess you could say. Special effects, although when that whole sequence where the bats came in to I guess resurrect him or give him a second win, I could see that there was some issues with how the animation was a little slow and stuff with the bats. That looks great because you could see it for sure when you're watching it in the Dolby Cinema because it's the higher quality screen and stuff. Something with that animation and visual effects for that particular section, something felt off on that. But the thing is, he kills him, injects him. I'm sitting here wondering, okay, what happened to the second shot? And also, they didn't really find a viable cure for him because he kept the whole movie. He's basically saying, "Yes, I have to drink the blue blood in order to the artificial blood, basically." But there's a period of time, eventually I need to find a cure, and that's what I'm curious of. I guess in the future movies they will address when he finally finds a cure, but they didn't address that. Number one, They didn't address the fact that he had that shot at the end, and I guess he decided he had a change of heart and decided, oh, I'm not going to kill myself. But it should have been an explanation as to why he decided not to do that. That was not in the movie. If that was in there, they edited, they took it out. So that's number two. And number three, at the very end, when the bats that helped to give him a second win, now they help him rise into the sky, and he has that whole scene where he escapes and flies across New York, whatever the hell, wherever the hell they are. No, I don't really care where they were at. Then you see a shot of his love interest waking up again. No explanation. These are just shots, and then the movie abruptly ends. That's why what I felt when I saw this in the entire movie, I felt like this script felt that like it was rushed because they just rushed to certain shots with no explanation and no context. And that's why I say if they took out a lot of editing, okay, that explains a lot of things. But this is why you have to be careful with the editing because it can be very confusing because it doesn't really give you any sense of what's happening. And especially with the love interest, like I thought it was very interesting because what I thought about is I know in the old vampire Dracula movies, whatever, usually when you bite the love interest or whatever, she does come back. So I said, okay, that makes sense. But again, they didn't really go into that because we didn't see that happen at any other time in this movie until the very end of the movie.
It was a weird way how they kind of alluded to it. Remember when they were looking at the camera footage, the
Yeah.
two cops, and it was saying something along the terms of, "Oh, these guys have a way of multiplying." It was a
Yes.
very throwaway line, so I'm going to assume that is what happened with her
Yeah.
and how she became reanimated. And I guess, and then that whole sequel, yeah.
Oh no, continue. I'm
No,
gonna
that
say
whole
after you.
sequence you was talking about with the bats. Remember when he was sitting there and but I think before no, right after he was got stronger, right? All of it, and he did that whole look at me, and it felt very super. What was it? Spider-Man ish. You know
Mm-hmm.
when he wakes up, I don't need the glasses anymore. What? Um, he goes into that thing where he was remember he was holding the bats captive because he was came up with that theory, and you're like, oh, they view me as a brother.
Yep.
It's a brotherhood. See, I'm standing. I really wish they kind of would have explained that more because that ended up going with the special effects that I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was that whole sequence with him and Matt Smith, and they were arguing in that train station, which would have been really good if the special effects weren't so bad. Um, there was that whole sequence where they're fighting, and then he's like, "Oh, I can." I thought it was like, is he using sound?
The
Because
sonar. Yep.
the
The
sonar
sonar.
thing, and then he jumps in front of the train. So I'm like, is it the wind of the train?
And see that again, the whole thing about the flying,
Because yeah, this it was.
it feels to me like his powers start to evolve throughout the movie, but they don't really give you an explanation as to why all of a sudden he has this ability to fly. None of that
No,
stuff was in there, and
no,
they needed to explain that better.
no. It was because they did the whole thing with the ear, so they
Yeah,
had the zooming in, and he can hear everybody's conversations. I'm like, that's cool, great. Um, so don't think it's sight because aren't bats blind? And then they use echolocation in order to see.
yeah, I believe so, and I'm pretty sure that those that saw the movie, please leave your comments, and you can let us know if we are
Please, because
incorrect
I'm
on some of
we
that
is
stuff.
confused,
Because
honey.
again, I'm not a scientist. I did see that there were some people that are scientists that even they had jokes about this movie and said that that's completely unrealistic. So it's not just us complaining about the movie.
Because they did the whole thing with the eyes. Because remember, they really zoomed in, and they
Whoa,
showed
whoa,
us.
whoa!
Remember, that's him when he's transforming, which I thought it was Dracula, but okay. So they're showing him like as he's transforming,
Yeah.
and the different states. He looks like the Hit Monkey comic that Gerard Way does. I'm like, is this Umbrella Academy? What's going on? But there is that part where they zoom in on like his eyeball and they show that it's changed.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm like, is he blind? I don't know what's going on. But they really did a terrible job at explaining that. They did a tire like we said before, they did a terrible job at explaining the connection with the girl. And I guess now it's Dracula. And then you have to go back to the conversation of they multiply. So does that mean every person that Milo is killed is gonna come back?
And see, that's what I didn't understand, because at least when you see a movie like Blade or any of these other movies in the past, when somebody gets bit, they normally do come back as a vampire also.
But like some
So
die though. Like if you look at Interview with the Vampire, people died,
yeah,
but then they chose to keep, like, say, Kristen Dunst. She lived. She had to keep feeding. But I just don't
yes,
know. I'm not a vampire expert, so I don't know the difference between how do you know when someone's dead, and then when they'll come back.
I agree. I agree. You don't know. I guess. And
Oh, the blood, the blood.
the
It's the
blood it the
no.
blood
Remember?
and the urge.
Yeah, no. Remember when? Okay, so with Interview with the Vampire, right? She was dying and everything, and he's like, "I suck your blood," and then he went and like cut his wrist. Brad Pitt or Tom
Yeah.
Cruise, and one of them cut the wrist, and she had to drink from his blood, and that's when he's like, "It's enough, it's enough, stop."
Yeah.
So, but was he cut? Was Jared Leto when she because she bit him? So then does that mean like from when she bit him, she then had the blood, and then that's how she was reanimated?
I guess so. Um, what I find interesting is that, yeah, he obviously he is able to sense a lot of things. So he did not sense that she woke up. So I don't know what that says about the sonar abilities. Um,
I don't know.
but it's some of this stuff just needed a better explanation. I mean, like I said, I think the concept itself,
Mm-hmm.
it had some promise. Even with the casting, it had some promise. But I
Mm-hmm.
think when you don't explain certain things, you edit and remove certain aspects of the movie, it loses a lot of meaning. And obviously, the people who are Jared Leto fans, they're going to see the movie because he's in it, and that's great.
Like,
They can go support the actor. That's great. But
mm-hmm.
I think that Sony definitely should have thought about this a little bit more. And if you're going to delay a movie, then it should be to make it better, not to delay
mm,
it and then have a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense when it actually comes out.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and go with that as well. I thought because a lot of times I've interviewed people, and especially when we had the pandemic happening in full swing, they were able to work on the movie more, the TV show more, and then like, hey, let's restart something new.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people were able to do. Now again, I don't know everyone's schedules, but I'm going to assume maybe it was clear because everyone was in lockdown, and maybe they didn't want to go back and refilm because they the spread of the panini. I don't know. But it really just felt like you could have at least finished the basic things. Like yours VFX were garbage juice. I
Yeah.
don't know what was going on with that at all. It felt like a PlayStation, like maybe two, PlayStation 2 video game, where like if I'm in the 90s and we're in the 90s together, like that looks cool.
Yeah.
But we're in 2022 and that looks like something out of the 90s. And half of the sequences didn't even look like they were fully finished. Some looked like they were really good. And then the other ones was like, why is this so bad?
Mm-hmm.
And why would you show that to the public?
I agree. I agree.
Mhm,
Um, that's why I said I'm curious to see what the reaction will be
mhm,
after the box office numbers, because I'll be honest, and the other issue I have with this movie, and this doesn't have anything to do with the movie in particular,
mhm,
but I think it was a mistake to release it this late, because when you had Spider-Man come out, obviously they wanted the Spider-Man to stay in there and get as much money out of the box office as possible.
mhm.
But I asked myself, why couldn't this release in February or March? Because literally there
Pandemic,
wasn't. We'll say what?
pandemic. Remember,
Oh yeah,
remember
yeah,
movies were still shifting dates,
yeah,
and so they was like, let's shift too. I mean, it was right. February was still a little too early. People weren't comfortable with coming back to the theater. Remember, people didn't know how 2022 would look like, but it was the No Way Home, where that nobody expected
yeah.
that to be successful the way that it was
That's the
because
movie.
of the pandemic. People were like, I don't care what, I'll wear 5 masks. I don't care.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I
seeing
know, I
that.
know, I know. Hey, I was one of those people that was there at the theater, so I
You,
I know that. Um,
I was in the back next to the wall, being like, just don't breathe on me, but I'm gonna see this.
yeah, exactly. So so that makes sense.
Hmm.
But my message to Sony is that I hope that they enjoy being number one this week. because there's no chance in hell they're not going to be number one next week. And I will go. I will be bold enough to say Sonic is probably going to be the number one movie for the rest of this month.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
am so
So
excited for
so
people to see that.
so I that's why I said they needed to try to put it out at a time where it can get a good amount of attention. I mean, it'll still be in the box office. I'm just saying it's not going to be the top seat the movie everybody's going to be watching next week.
Mm-mm.
That's guaranteed.
Right.
So hope they're ready for that.
That's true. I do want to point out one good perform. Well, they were good. And there were some good performances. It was just because of the editing. Their father, Nicholas, who
Yeah.
was like their adoptive father. I really loved his performance until they made it a stereotype. I loved how just caring he was, and like everyone's older now. I think they were around 35 years old now, and everyone's all a billionaire or whatever. They're all rich, and we don't know how exactly Milo got all his money,
Hmm.
but he's a secret financer and backing all of the plans. But I do like how Nicholas was portrayed. I felt like the nice family figure father that he was, especially when they did the flashbacks when they were like 10 or so in the
Hmm.
hospital and the kids getting the poop kicked out of him. So I really like that. I just hate the way that he died. I just thought it was so corny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was
Well,
so
hey, I knew he was going to get killed though.
That's the thing. Like there were so many things where it was like, yeah, he's gonna die. I wish it wasn't so predictable because the way, for example, just to compare really quickly, the way how West Side Story was when they took changes and they changed a lot of the things while still keeping it the same.
Hmm.
I thought at the end, I'm like, is he even going to get shot? Is he going to die? Are they going to change this? And even if they did change it, it would have still worked. But with this one, it was so safe. I didn't feel that this movie took any chances at all.
Yeah.
And even with the father and the way how he died, they didn't take any chances with this. Everything
Hmm.
for me was kind of paint by numbers. And even when we see with Milo then the transformation, it was like, and now you're the bad guy. Everything's over the top. There,
I agree. I agree 100%.
nothing like what happened if they actually just he didn't go on this huge killing spree and it's essentially this felt like it was just an argument between two friends the whole movie. But what happens if he didn't go on the killing spree or he just had different ideas than him and they were just two people with two different ideas. It felt like they was
Well,
trying to do a whole Thanos thing and it wasn't Thanos thing
yeah, I guess they said, well, we need an adversary, so well, let's just make the best friend his adversary for now,
for now.
and then we'll address some other stuff that we'll look into with him in the future.
Yeah, I don't. It was just it wasn't working for me. But I did like kind of what they did with the dad. But then let's just kind of just go into the ending since that's what we're all here for to try to understand the ending. This made no sense at all because for me, if you just looked at the trajectory, the whole movie itself, Morbius is not a villain. That's the whole purpose of what makes him so conflicted and being a doctor and a Hippocratic oath. That's why he's like arguing the whole time with Milo for what 2 hours. He's
Hmm.
not a villain. He doesn't want to kill people. He doesn't see the bad in people. He's there trying to help people. You have him with the sick little babies. Like, hi, Dr. Michael. Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah. I agree.
Hmm.
The thing is that they made him a conflicted individual because he had this urge, though, that he had to feed on. That's why the first time he killed people, it was so devastating. He's like, "Oh, this could never happen again." And I actually like that. You have a character
Hmm.
with that type of conflict. But really, he should be his own worst enemy if he loses control of what he's doing. So that's why I say I like that aspect of it. Um, but again, they wanted to make it about, well, we need an adversary for him, so now we're going to make the best friend the adversary. So
And, yeah, so they wanted to make him the best friend, the adversary, and then he ends up technically killing his best friend, and you explain the whole thing with the shot. But then we get to the mid credit. There's two credits. There was the mid credit where all of a sudden this we had they was watching the news. Was it the news? And the sky was all crackling and opening up. And remember that was supposed to be from, I don't know if it was from the beginning of No Way Home when he did the spell, or was he when he sent everyone back? But
Yeah, I was confused about that also.
so then all of a sudden we had the Tombs, the Vulture guy, the Keaton, Michael Keaton
Yeah.
from No Way Home,
Yep.
who popped into this universe.
Hmm.
Help me now, make sure I'm right with this because it was confusing. Popped into this universe, and we saw like the Flash on the TV. New York One News is a New York station that's in literally every movie that has to do with New York City. But it was explained that Adrian Toomes we let out of jail because he's not the guy from this universe.
That's very confusing.
Where did the guy go?
Yeah, that's very confusing. I'm
Okay,
very confused about that.
so okay, so then they had him. He's now in the universe with Sony. He was originally in MCU with Peter being the father of the guy. Oh God, Jesus! He was Zendaya's father
Yeah.
in the first run, where he lost his job. He had all of the Stark technology,
Well,
right?
not Zendaya's father. This was the other girl that Peter was interested in.
Right. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm getting people. So he was the other girl, but he was the one who still had the Stark technology.
Yeah. Hmm.
So it was not Zendaya's father. It was the right. I'm remember from Homecoming. Right.
Hmm.
He was the one who was the father for the other girl what Peter was interested in because MJ and him didn't get together really until No Way Out, No Way
Yeah.
Home.
Yeah. That happens slowly over time. Hmm.
Happened slowly over time because Marvel likes to, pace things out and have a storyline. So he was the father of the other girl who happened to also be black with the long hair. Okay, so he was the father of her. He lost his job, acquired all of the Stark technology, and then this is when he was like, I hate you all. But it really wasn't like a villain guy. He was just someone who was a family man. He was a family man. He wanted to make the money for the family, and he didn't like Peter Parker because, dad. Then he
Yep.
found out who Peter Parker really was and was like, oh, snap. But he was never a bad guy.
Yeah.
I always got the impression he was never a bad guy. He was never a villain. He was someone who loved his family dearly and did not want Peter Parker to date his daughter.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, he got bibbity booped into Sonyverse, where he still has the Stark technology
Yeah. I guess so. Hmm.
and the ability to create and fix his vulture suit from Homecoming
Yeah.
somehow. Okay. Um, and then this was really weird. So that was the first part. And then the second part, we have all of a sudden, Morbius is able to he gets in his car and instead of flying, because apparently, remember, he also can fly, but now he's in this car and he's racing down the highway. He's still a fugitive. Nobody knows where this guy is at,
Hmm.
but somehow Vulture contacts him and tells him, let's go meet in this big open field all of a sudden. And just simply says, doesn't say like, hey, let's, we're Sinister Six. He just basically says, oh, it's time we do some bad. And then that's it.
Yeah. Um. This. Well, I will say this. That was all very confusing. I feel like a majority of people are going to see this movie just so they can see those end credit scenes and how it connects to the
They're
other
only on
Spider-Man
YouTube.
movies.
They're on YouTube. Just watch the end credit scenes on YouTube.
Oh yeah, they could do that too. So I didn't really understand a lot of that. Um, we know that in this movie you have the whole thing where Jared Leto mentions I am Venom, so I'm assuming that Venom will eventually become a part of this Sinister Six if that
Yeah.
is the whole direction. I don't really know who the other villains are going to be in that group.
Oh, remember,
And
remember, and they cut this is also why I was really angry because they would show the marketing. Remember, the marketing originally had Jared Leto walking down the street, and it had Spider Man.
yep, I remember that. Hmm.
Remember
The,
that
the, the,
whole
the, the
scene.
newspaper clipping.
The newspaper clipping
Yep.
also had Rhino in it. It
You
had
still
Black Cat.
you still have the Daily Bugle.
It had the Daily Bugle.
Oh, there you go. Yep, the
So
poster. There it is.
that was the whole thing. So like, I was also one of the other reasons why I wanted to see it. Was like, okay, Spider Man, because the
Uh
trailers.
that yeah. So I okay, I get it now. That's why you were saying this was supposed to come out before
Hmm.
a Spider Man. Yep. So I guess they
Because that
decided nope.
explained the murderer. Because remember, it took place. It was supposed to take place after, um, the movie with not supposed to say Mephisto, with Mysterio.
Yep.
So
hmm
it was that Mysterio movie. Then it was like, oh, and the real guy is Peter Parker.
Well, my question
And then
would
this
be to
one.
Sony is why didn't they just still go with the plan? Why did you have to have Spider Man come out before this? They could have easily. They're in control of this, right? They couldn't just have this movie
No,
come out before or Marvel.
no, so Marvel's not in control of Sony.
No, no. I'm saying Sony could not. They knew what they had done with Morbius. They couldn't decide. This Morbius movie has to come out before Spider Man. They couldn't make that decision, or they just. That's why I don't
I
understand
don't.
because they knew that there was stuff in this movie tied to that one. So I don't understand why you would purposely release this later if you could have controlled when you wanted to release this.
I don't know. Maybe again they was afraid that no one was going to see the movie because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
if this did come out, and I want to know what the full scenes are because the director's spoiling everything, but he's not spoiling what it was supposed to be.
hmm
But he is trying to explain, very much so, what happened in the end credit scene. And I guess maybe they butchered that too because there were parts where it felt like Jared Leto and Michael Keaton weren't even in the same scene.
hmm
It felt like, and it wasn't even like that well mushed together. Because if you looked at Army of the Dead, remember Teague, remember she was the woman replaced the comedian who did all those weird jokes, and come to find out he was messing with children allegedly.
Yeah.
And they put in Teague, I forgot her full last name, but they put her in, and she's in the movie, and she looks like she's interacting with everyone, but the whole performance is just her and green screen.
Oh yeah, I know what
They
you're talking about.
Yeah, they didn't even properly do that. So it literally feels like I filmed this one day. They brought in Michael Keaton one time when he was, in between the Batman and Batgirl or the Flash, and he said his line, and then they poorly mushed it together.
Yep.
Because it's just like, hey, you want to be a team? Like, yeah, bye. Like, and nothing again. How did he contact him? Um,
The
why
sonar,
all
I
of
guess. The
the sonar,
sonar.
the sonar. He waved his hand. He did this. Come find me. But no. So it was the fact that all of a sudden now they're villains because it was weird because Adrian Toome was never a villain, but now they're villains. They give no explanation as to why Morbius would want to team up with this guy. That's like you bumping into someone in the street and they're like, "Hey, let's team up." You don't know him from anything.
Well, no, they in that end credit scene, he did say, "Oh, he was reading up about him," but that was the only extent to which he
Yeah,
acknowledged that he knew who this guy was.
but why would Morbius be like, "Yeah, cool, you read about me. Let's be a team."
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It
It
makes no
doesn't
sense
make
at all. I agree 100%.
that doesn't make any sense. Then also one thing that really bothered me was they changed everything of what happened in No Way Home. Because if you look at both of the spell was everyone who knew who Peter Parker was came to that specific universe, right? And then at the end, they all got yeeted back to the universe where they originally belonged to.
hmm
So, how is Michael Keaton able to get into this universe?
That's a great question.
Are they trying to say Vulture was there in the Marvel verse the whole time?
I think that needs to be further explained by them. The problem is that I don't trust that they are going to explain
The doc
because
director did.
oh he
He's
did oh he
he's
did and what did he say?
open door policy. Hospital stop. He said it is an open universe.
Okay.
That's not how the spell works, though, which doesn't make any sense.
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't
It
make any sense.
doesn't make any sense at all. So Venom was wreaking havoc at the same time as Morbius. Peter Parker was either just now starting the spell and botched it, or maybe it was the end of the spell.
Mm,
We still don't know. There's no general connection to the Marvelverse with Spider-Man. And
yeah.
then it made me think, remember there was that time when Marvel and Sony walked away from each other and there was no deal anymore? And everyone was really depressed, and this was before, remember, we never, technically we was never supposed to get No Way Home.
Mm,
So then I'm wondering, maybe that's when they started with this movie and was like, okay, fine, we'll just make our own stuff. And then when the deal happened, they just, instead of reshooting scenes, they just cut everything out because
yeah.
it doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure that the Sony execs, um, they were just heavily focused on this movie needs to come out. If you've already shot some, we're not going to spend any more money. So if you've already shot the movie, then this is it. We're not going to invest in making any additional changes. So a lot of it is very confusing. Um, I just think they figured they'll have an opportunity to make a better movie after once they saw what happened with Spider-Man, they're like, okay, well, this movie, we just want to get people interested in it, and then we'll come back and make a better attempt the second time.
Hmm. Yeah. So overall, that was basically everything. It had the potential to be great, but it was not. I think this probably would have, for me, I know people are sick and tired of TV shows and especially superhero shows. This would have worked better as a limited series.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
That way,
definitely would have.
yeah.
Um, but hey, I guess we'll see what happens from here.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. We got Martine running around. She's a new character. She's not based on anyone, so I guess she's causing havoc and Morbius too, if there is a Morbius too.
Yeah, there will be
Well,
because
Sinister.
there probably will be. I mean, we'll see.
We'll
I don't
see.
know.
Remember, they teased Sinister Six and Spider.
So you'll see at the most you will see Morbius again. It just I don't know if he's going to have his a solo movie, but you'll see him again for sure.
I don't know because remember at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, remember that end credit?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Remember remember how that went? And we're still waiting for that. This was
It
his
might
one.
happen now. Hey, listen, that can happen now that people that now that they see people are actually interested in seeing this story continue. Yeah, they are. So it might happen now.
Oh god. Unless Marvel is literally holding their hands. I don't want to see a Sinister Six movie.
Uh oh. Oh
I'm
well, no, well, it is going to happen now because
mm-mm.
I personally feel this is the last thing I will say about this particular topic.
Mhm.
I personally feel that Sony they basically work with Marvel. They agreed to work with Marvel for the sake of making the Spider-Man films better. Now they probably have a little bit of confidence that okay, now that we have established Spider-Man with
Mhm.
Marvel, now we can do our own version of building up world building on our own, not relying so much on Marvel to do everything. And this is where I say the issue is. They don't have a Kevin Feige, so if they think they're going to make something that is of equal value to anything that Kevin Feige has touched, they're in for a big surprise.
Mhm.
It requires a lot of time, a lot of attention to detail, and very meticulous. And I don't think anyone at Sony is that meticulous when it comes to thinking about any of this stuff.
Right. But here's the one thing that did bother me. Going back to Vulture,
Mhm.
when he got yeeted into another universe, he did not seem surprised.
Yeah, he wasn't surprised.
He
You're
was
right.
like, "Hey, I'm still here. Uh, the food, the food better be better in just this joint." Which then made me wonder again, just trying to think of hope and possibility that he was aware of what was going on the whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe he was, even though he was arrested at the end of um his movie Homecoming.
Hmm.
Maybe they were secretly working on some device where they can go to another universe, and that's what happened. And it also just happened to be at the same time the universe split.
Maybe.
Maybe
I don't know. Maybe.
Um, that's basically anything that I can kind of think of because he was just completely like, "Hey, food better be better," and he's like, "Hey, I didn't commit these crimes. Let me go." And yeah, that's the only thing that I can probably think of. And the fact that Michael Morbius was able to get a hold of his vampire ways very kind of quickly. He was like, "Hey, I guess I'll live with it," and I guess that's it. So he's now is he killing people? Is he redoing the blue blood? And that also got that I hated so much because it
The
was like
artificial blood, yeah.
the artificial blue blood. I'm like, is that because of PG-13? And then remember, they were parts of the movie where like they show him like supposedly cutting someone's neck, and you hear the gurgling sounds
Yeah.
of like, but there was no blood.
That could be.
Yeah.
That could be.
So I don't know what else to say about this aside from it was terrible. Any other things you would like to touch upon?
Oh no. I agree that the movie, I definitely think it was by far one of the weakest Marvel Sony projects that they have thus far. Um there may be another movie that drops later this year that might be worse. I mean, I don't think so, but I think this is definitely the weakest that they've done. But again, I am curious to see how much it does at the box office. There is nothing to watch in the theaters right now, so that definitely will get people to the theater to watch something. And obviously, the numbers are going to determine a lot of things. So we'll see if they reach the target that Sony wants them to reach this weekend.
I again I yeah I hope Jared Leto is successful in the second movie, and they
Yeah.
get help because they need that. They need some help. I'm just baffled by how they dropped the ball with this one so incredibly so. Where it kind of miss Suicide Squad, but yeah. Um, Prayers to Jared Leto. I hope the career is improved because I wasn't a fan of We Crash either, but do something. I hope it works out for you.
Yeah.
um, so then I guess that's it from us. Sinister Six movie, unconfirmed, confirmed, is on the way. Uh, Morbius 2, visual effects improved, hopefully, and they hire some scripts. And I feel sorry for Tyrese because Tyrese got like 99% of his scenes cut, but he got paid for 100% of them.
Yeah, he got paid, so he should be happy.
There you
No,
go.
no, no, no crying on Instagram.
No crying on Instagram. I hope they find him a better partner because none of the jokes were landing with that one. So that's basically all that we have to say about this. Um, I hope you enjoy Morbius better than we did.
Yes.
All right. So see you guys later. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, whatever it is you're supposed to do on the YouTube.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Is there anything else? Is there anything else you would like to say in terms of plugging?
Oh yeah, yeah. So as Dana said, thank you for checking out our review.
Hmm.
Feel free to like, comment, consider subscribing if you're interested. Of course, Gary and I did review the latest episode of Snowfall yesterday, so check that out if you're a fan. I saw there were a lot of comments already, so yeah, great show. Just a reminder, Power Force returns next week, so there is not going to be a Power Cast this week, but we will be back to record that for the next episode, so stay tuned for that. And as Dana mentioned, there's a lot of things already on the channel. The movie that you should watch is coming out next week, Sonic. Dana has actually already seen that movie. She has a spoiler-free review. She has a reaction, and she's going to possibly have another review as well with more spoilers soon. But definitely check that out because a lot of people was very interested in Sonic. Um, so yeah, but feel free to check out all the content on the channel and let us know what you like, if what you would like to see more of, and we'll be sure to work on that for you guys.
Hmm. And also, in terms of Morbius, we have interviews with Matt Smith that is
Mm-hmm.
on the channel, the director, Daniel Espinosa, with the lovely actress who played Adrienne. I think her name is Adrienne. Oh, Lord. I
Yeah.
bewitched the character. We have the entire cast of Morbius, including Jared Leto, which is really interesting because we talk a little bit about Morbius, and then it just goes to complete chaos with Zoom plants, Hitler's involved. We got Jesus in there. Mozart becomes a whole conversation. The people running the junket, you are sending me angry messages. Please end it. What is going on?
Oh,
So
uh-oh.
that was that was fun. But yeah, we do have a very interesting conversation, and we do talk about Morbius too.
Hmm.
Yeah, and people he's saying that he knows who he's gonna. This is another thing I completely forgot. He knows who he is going to face in the second movie.
Uh-oh. To
There
be
will be a
determined.
there will be a Morbius 2 because the
He
way
said
how
that.
the way how he alluded was, I have someone I know I want to say that I cannot say. And if you cannot say something, that means there is a Morbius 2.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Makes sense. So there you go with that. So once again, check out the site, check out the YouTube page, and have a great day. And we will be back with even more content because it's WrestleMania weekend.
Hmm.
Hey, hey. And then, yes, we do have other stuff going on. So thank you very much for watching. Once again, Richard Bailey Jr. as a disgruntled Marvel executive.
Yes.
You're ruining all the universes. So, and I am the Morbius FX team. So I did a wonderful job with that. Academy Award winning, by the way. And if you disagree, I will slap you. Slap,
Uh-oh.
slap.
Whoa, don't say that. Uh-oh.
Slap,
Yeah.
slap. So have a great day, everyone.